5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Getting Real with Réal podcast, where we get raw, real, and brutally transparent so you can be the best version of you. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, let's kick it off with your host, Réal Andrews, a.k.a. Coach.
Five, four, three, two, one, boom. What's up, champions? Coach Réal here with Getting Real with Réal, where we get raw, real, authentic, and brutally transparent so you can be the best version of yourself. I'm really excited. I got a special guest here, Steve Burton, known as Anger Boy, quarter brain of General Hospital. Good buddy of mine. Steve, how you doing, man?
What's going on, man? How are you today?
I am good. I'm grateful for you spending some time with us. I know you're crazy. So
crazy. Crazy, man. Not as crazy as you. I see you up early every morning. I'm like, this dude is up at like 4 a.m., man. He's getting it done. So that's awesome.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like I'm missing my groove because I usually get up like 3:30 and I go to the stairs over there.
Yeah.
But the pandemic police got crazy and they're like waiting for people and like 3 a.m. to give you like a $500 ticket. I'm like, dude, there's just me and the deer out here.
Come on, bro. I know. It's crazy.
I know, right?
Even the deer have masks on. What are you doing, bro?
So my God, that's so crazy. So listen, Steve, let's just jump right in, buddy. Let's take me back to 5 years old, your childhood. What was it like?
Dude.
Was it nice, fun? The only child, the other side of the tracks, rich? What?
Well, no. I grew up with not a lot. Single parent for a long time. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 2 years old. My dad basically hitchhiked across the country from Indiana to California when he was 18 years old because he wanted to get out of the Midwest. I stayed back in Ohio with my mom. She was a single mother working. So, there wasn't a lot of stability. My mom was always a great encourager, though. That's what I can always go back to is my mom was always saying, hey, go try this, go try that. It was never, you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. So when I kind of look back on my childhood, I really don't have any you don't really know how bad your situation is until you're really out of it. Right. Or you go see a friend who has a 6,000 square foot house. You're like, oh, I live in an apartment.
Right.
Oh, I might get evicted next month. Oh, so you don't really compute that. I could see the difference, but overall I had I felt like I had a great childhood. And my mom was supportive in saying, hey, go do this, go try this. And I think that was a huge thing for me because I was always never really afraid to go do anything, and so I grew up that way back in Cleveland, Ohio. And my dad, in the meantime, was out in California. And every year I would visit my father from when I was 9 years old. My mom put me on an airplane at 9 and I would fly across to go to California from Cleveland, Ohio. And then I would spend a week with my dad in the summer. And I didn't really get to know my dad until I was that age, 9 or 10 years old. So, and of course I loved it. It was California. That's everybody dreams of like, hey, this is amazing. My dad was a apartment manager of buildings in Beverly Hills. So we got to live in an apartment in Beverly Hills. I'm like, this is amazing. So I would come out every week or every year for a week. And then every year when I was 11, it was 2 weeks. When I was 12, it was 3 weeks. And then it kept going to when I was 16 years old, it was 6 weeks. And I just loved being out there so much. And my dad managed this apartment building that was kind of like Melrose Place, but it was like 40 units and it was all young. It was young actors. It was college kids. So there was a lot of energy around and people, kind of go-getters doing stuff. And it was just a great place. And I called my mom that summer and I said, I'm not coming home.
Right.
I'm not coming back. So that was a tough call for me to make.
How did she take that?
Yeah, she didn't take it well. She did not take it well. And I remember to this day, and my stepfather at the time got on the phone and was like, these are the things you remember. He goes, he said, what are you going to do out there? Your father hasn't done anything.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? You're not that smart. What are you going to do? You're wasting your time. Get home or something like that. And it just stuck with me. I remember being on the phone, the actual phone. He's like, what has your father done out there? He hasn't done anything. You're not going to do anything either, And my mom, overall, she took it well because she let me go. Right. I was 16. She didn't have to let me go. She could have called the cops. She could have called somebody. But she let me go. So I give her credit for that too, because that was a life changer for me. Living with my dad out in California, I was always trying to get jobs. I was always trying to work. There was always an entrepreneur in me somewhere because I was always washing cars. I was always doing stuff for people in his building. I knew at that point in my life, I was going to go to Beverly Hills High. I was really the 90210 story. I came from,
you look like the 90210 kid.
Well, but I came from lower class to Beverly Hills, right? But I didn't have the money. So
right.
I'm living in Beverly Hills, but I didn't have the money. So I got a job that summer from somebody who lived in the building, and it was inventory and steaming women's clothes at a clothing store in Beverly Hills. And literally back then they were paying me like 15 to 20 bucks an hour back then.
Wow. That's a lot.
Dude, it was a lot. And I was working 10 hours a day. I worked as hard as I could. I saved like 3,400 bucks, which was huge money. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to Beverly Hills High. I got to go spend it on clothes. So I spent all my money on clothes like a dumbass. And then I went there and everybody's in shorts and flip-flops.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what? I could have bought a car. Meanwhile, I'm looking good riding my bike to school though.
Right. You look like, it reminds me back in the day, man, my dad, he was like, what was his name? Rooster on Beretta. He was like, had the bell bottom pants. And, that's the way he dressed me up, man. I remember having suedes, bell bottoms, and, platform 3-inch platform shoes. And, like you say, it's like, we don't know, man. I thought I was the shit, dude. I thought I was going on, dude. I mean, he made me a custom black and a custom red velvet suit. I went to graduation in a red velvet suit. I mean, it was crazy.
Amazing. That's amazing.
See, you said a couple things that's really interesting to me because I totally get when I look back at my childhood, because it's interesting to me. I had that. I came from the other side of the tracks. but what I did have was my mom telling me, don't dream big. I had my dad telling me there's no such word as CANT. And you had, and so you went on to become something. Now it's interesting. Your stepdad came in, but he was just your stepdad. Your parents supported you. And it's like, when I think of Steve taking out a restaurant, becoming an actor. I mean, these aren't easy things to do, coming from a small town. I came from a small town, becoming a successful actor, winning an Emmy. Where do you think, did you get that drive from? Like where did you get that drive from, that always driving, doing things when most kids aren't doing anything?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. That's like the $1 million question, right? Is like, where does someone get that motivation and that the drive to keep going all the time? So I got to give, regardless of my situation, my stepdad was a downer most of the time, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a great situation for a kid to be in, but my mom was always positive and supportive. And then on the other hand, my dad was always positive and supportive too. And then I had his parents that I would visit all the time. And my grandpa, he was the guy who was always telling me to think positive, even as a kid. Like when I was 12 years old, I remember going there for the holidays, and he would actually make me sit down and write out my goals for the next year. Like, even if they were like, I wish I could get a big wheel, or I want to be friends with this guy, or whatever it was. Right. So he would have me do that at 12 years old. And I'm like, what is this? What are you doing? So the next year I opened the letter, and half those things came true.
Wow,
right?
that's
So
huge.
it's huge. And you know this, the power of
Mhm.
visualization, writing down your goals is like everybody should just write down their basic goals, right?
Mhm.
So I saw what my grandpa was doing. He was a very successful vacuum salesman, door to door, right? And you know those guys are grinders.
Mhm.
Selling vacuums door to door in the 50s and 60s, man, that is a
Wow.
brutal business. And he was
Yep.
he was awesome. So I could now I look back and I could see what he was doing with the positive thinking and writing down your goals and being relentless and
Mhm.
having a work ethic that is like no other, right? So
Mhm.
I come from a blue collar family. My grandfather was a vacuum salesman. Then he went into he worked at GM for years. My uncle was a welder, a union welder. So I mean, these are people who work hard. So I had the example of, hey, you're going to work, right? So I had that in my genes already. I wasn't afraid to work, and I
Yeah.
always say I might not be the smartest guy, but I will probably outwork you,
Yep. I, I
right?
I could totally relate to, dude. You ain't gonna outwork this guy.
Right.
I say that the same
Well,
thing. And
you're up at 3 a.m., so I know I'm not outworking you.
no, but it's different, and we have that respect. I can totally see that respect. But I want to go a couple things before we move forward,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I always say this: you speak life and death with the power of words. And so, like you said, you never forgot those words
Mm-hmm.
when your stepdad said it, but you overcame them. Most people, the people listening to this, I'd love you to explain to them, because most people will stick in that. They'll stick in that.
Yes.
Oh, I'm a black guy living in a white man's world. My dad left me. I had a thing. And so they're 50 years old, they're 40 years old, and they're still
Stuck.
blaming
Yes.
that.
Correct. Yeah.
So how, because those were powerful words for you to hear. How
Yeah.
did you overcome that and not let it affect you? But it's in your head.
It's still in my head, dude, all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's still in my head. I remember one specific time where my stepfather said, "You're just dumb," at the dinner table. That's what he said to me,
Wow.
and I still remember. I still remember where I was sitting. I remember the exact time, you know, and for me, remembering those things is fuel still, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't harbor, I don't hang on to it, but I do remember where I came from, and I remember the things that were said to me, so that does give me motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the primary force behind the motivation? No, it's not. Now I have new motivation, my family, my kids, things I want to do for them. But, I can't really put my finger on. All I know is that by the grace of God, that I'm here today.
Mm-hmm.
Because looking back, there was a lot of things in my childhood. I would never, ever want my kid to be in these situations, ever.
Right.
Ever,
Yeah.
ever. And you too,
Mm-hmm.
So, but we don't know at the time. We can look back and go, oh man, I don't even know how I got out of there. And that's why I go, God's hand was in my life at that point, because I just kept going. I just kept moving forward. Right. And a lot of time that's what people, like you said, you put it great. People get stuck, right? People get stuck in where they are. You're 40, you're 50, you're still harboring things. You're blaming people. You're stuck. I always kept moving forward no matter what. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
as long as there's momentum, you're not going to be stuck.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't put my finger on what it was exactly that made me keep going, but it never weighed me down enough. I was able to go, whatever, shake it off, go. So it was never like, oh man, my situation sucks. Of course, we all feel that way at some point,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't live in that place. I don't live there. Especially now, I don't live there, because I've learned
Right.
so many lessons in 50 years, dude, and they were painful lessons.
Right.
Even with the great success I've had, there's been huge obstacles, huge self-inflicted, painful lessons that that I had to get through and I had to learn. And that's really the hardest thing I see for people, is when those situations happen to people, turning those failures into lessons, right? And really doing that, Réal, and really being honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like looking at yourself, go, okay, this is my fault. I put myself in this situation. I got to be responsible. I got to be accountable for this and not blame others, even though you probably could blame others sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to take it all on and I'm going to freaking sit on this. And it took me 2 or 3 years for certain lessons for me to go, okay, I learned, now I see what the lesson was, because I would beat myself up. I'd beat myself up.
The voice, the enemy,
the enemy.
enemy.
You're right.
The enemy is crazy. And you know what I say to I always say to champions, I love what you say, because most people want to point the finger at everybody else. And I say, you know what you need to do, go upstairs to your bathroom, stand in front of the bathroom mirror and take a look. And that's the person that, and the other thing that I love that you do, because I've always said that is, and this is new for me too, but I've always been like you, move, but it wasn't until recently, I struggle with bipolar, 2 years sober in 2 days on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And,
Awesome.
but thank you. But it's like what most people will see as challenges and negative things in their life. I say those challenges made us who we are. And you look at it as like we're both believers. I say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I see them as blessings now. And which, speaking of believer, you mentioned that God had your back, right? God's got it. But how old were you when you made that decision and you actually found God?
Well, I always believed. I mean, my it's funny because I grew up, my mom was adopted by Jewish grandparents.
Okay.
And my father's grandparents were Catholic. So I was always kind of raised around faith. Right. So I always had a great outlook of who God was. Right. I always knew there was a God. I'd always pray. I'd always, so I always knew. And I feel it was great to have Jewish grandparents. I learned a lot about the Old Testament. I learned a lot about the Bible, and then I had my Catholic grandparents too. And I went to church all the time with them. And then my mom
got in so much shape, just sorry to cut you off, but I think being Catholic, dude, I remember up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, and then my mom is Episcopalian, and she married an Episcopalian priest. So I've always been around faith. Right. So, a lot of times when you have these obstacles in life, this pain in life, you have to give it up to somebody. And I choose to give it up to God, because we could kill ourselves with anxiety and fear and all these things that we could carry that we shouldn't be carrying. Right. We give fear the power that fear has. I give it up. It's not always easy. Listen, dude, I know you've been through I know you've been through a lot in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're always a positive person. You always have a great outlook and a great attitude. And for people to watch us and go, oh, they're just so positive and happy, but it's been a long road and obstacles have been overcome to get to this place. And we choose to be grateful. We choose to have an attitude of gratitude when we get up in the morning and go. I tell my son, because he'll get up and he's 14. So he gets up and complains a little bit.
A lot.
And I'm like, dude, I said, hey, are you breathing? He goes, yeah. I go, it's going to be a good day. You're breathing. Let's just start with that. Let's be grateful. Let's okay, I woke up another day. But there's people who didn't wake up today, dude. And to put it that simple, it's very profound if you think about how much that we take for granted.
Oh my gosh.
How much we take, and especially you're cancer free now, which is amazing.
Right.
What a freaking blessing. And I don't even know that you going through that is such a deep, dark place, and such a reckoning of holy crap. Is this it? What have I done on earth? What can I leave? What am I doing for my family? What can I leave my family? I mean, it's like you go through all these things in your head, I'm sure. And to overcome that and to be cancer free and to keep doing what you're doing is awesome.
Well, it's, Steve, for me, it was like I said, 2 years sober, Christmas Day, which is in 2 days, 3 days. But it's like you said, there was a time, I think it was about 3 months into the journey. It's a big part of the program. And I came to honestly, not just say it, but say God's got it. And like you said, that was so freeing. When you truly walk in God's got it, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to, it's crazy, dude, if you really, really believe in that. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you skate by it because you mentioned it and you just mentioned and you talked about, yeah, people see us. Oh, look at Réal. He's got it.
Sure.
He's all positive. He's showing up. Steve,
Sure.
he's always like showing up. But what was you mentioned, I had some serious tragic lessons that I brought on myself. What was one of the most biggest lessons that was challenging for you?
The most challenging was when I moved to Nashville. Well, for a while, I was trying to figure out how not to rely on acting, so to speak, for my main source of income. I've always been doing other things, other restaurants, so I invested in a restaurant in Nashville, and it didn't go great, and I lost a lot of money.
Mhm.
And it just, like it sits in your gut. Like you lose, I lost a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I'll take responsibility for it because I was the one.
And you had a
So,
family at that time, right?
oh
So
yeah,
it's not just you anymore.
no, it's not me. And, you know, I- I'm the great thing about my wife is she's pretty conservative when it comes to things. Like her dad was super conservative financially, but me, I risk. You
Yeah.
know that I always say I jump off the cliff and then try
That's
to
me
figure
and
out
my wife right there.
how to build a plane on the way down.
Yeah.
And she wasn't 100% on board, and I still went and did it.
Mm-mm.
And first of all, that happening, and there was a lot of circumstances that happened that were out of our control, but it doesn't matter. I'm the one who did it. I got to take responsibility. I let her down. I let myself down, and it was a tough pill to swallow for years.
Still,
Still,
you're still kidding. What about
still,
as a kid, Steve?
still,
Were you
still.
were you bullied as a kid, Steve, or like were you like what was
Well, that's a
life
good,
as a kid?
that's a good question. I moved around a lot. I went to 5 different high schools, so it was very difficult for me. And because I was always the new kid, and you know, I didn't look like the manliest man when I was a teenager. I might have
Well,
looked like a girl.
oh, really?
So that wasn't great either. So, yeah, there was some bullying, but I mean, not too bad. I mean, I kind of was the guy who floated. I was never really in one group. I was always the guy who had friends in every group. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one clique I was hanging out with. So I think that was a lot of why I can adapt to things too, is because when you put a kid in a situation where you're like having to make friends and having to adapt, I remember going to these schools they seemed so huge at the time like I lived in Chicago for a couple of years, and it was just like, it was daunting. Like you're there by yourself. You don't know anybody. Good luck. Get on the
Yeah.
bus with people you don't know. Go to school. Figure it out. You know what I mean? So it wasn't school was okay. I just never had a lot of lifelong friends because I was never in the same place long enough to do that. But the only place I really ever got bullied was just one school. I got pushed around a little bit, but that was it. So it wasn't too bad, but it was, it sucked, but it wasn't great.
Were you and I think I know the answer, but were you innately at a young age a leader or a follower?
Follower.
Really?
100%. And this
Wow.
is exactly what I was trying to figure out, Réal, when we talked, because one of my mentors that I love to listen to is a guy named Les Brown.
Yep.
Who's a motivational speaker. I love Les Brown. That's all I listen to when I go for runs. He's been around. If people listening or watching, he's been around since the 70s. This dude is awesome.
And his body, some people don't know, he's riddled with cancer.
Yeah.
And he's still showing up.
He's amazing, dude. I love the guy. He gives me so much inspiration. I love how he can incorporate life's lessons with a little humor. And this dude is so smart with just everything he says. So, so what would you ask me?
I said,
yeah,
were
he's
you
a
a leader
follower.
or follower?
No,
Yeah.
I was a follower. I was always a people pleaser.
Wow, that's surprising.
Because I was always in tumultuous situations at home trying to make everything okay. Right. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you're in in not the greatest environment at home. And you want to be the guy going, oh, just make it okay. Just so everything's okay. Right. So, I was a people pleaser, and I try to figure out when the change was, because people always ask. I went from people pleasing to really taking care of myself.
Right.
Right. And not trying to please others and doing what I wanted to do. And it didn't really happen until I got on General Hospital.
Really?
In my early 20s. And this is what's interesting. And this goes back to your question about how do you keep driving, or how do you get motivation, right? So one of the ways to get motivation is a routine. So there was two things that happened simultaneously when I went to General Hospital in my last couple of years. I had a 4-year contract first. And then my last year, that's when Maurice said, hey, that's when Maurice and I really became friendly, and he started helping me before I turned to Jason Morgan, my character. And we worked so hard acting wise together. And at the same time, I started working out religiously at the same time. So I kind of look back and I go, wait a minute. So I was forming these habits and disciplines that were positive, right? That made me feel self-confident and gave me self-esteem. And I was having these victories often, right? Because people always ask, how do I get started? I don't have discipline. I don't have motivation, all this stuff. And I go, you got to have a routine. You have to have a routine, because if you get up at 3:30 a.m., that's a victory. You do the stairs, there's your victory. You go home, you eat the right meal, there's your victory. Then you get into the word, or you pray, or you meditate, or you're doing whatever, there's a victory. So all of a sudden you got 4 victories before noon, right? So to me, that's how you build self-esteem and you start feeling better about yourself and I look back and I really only look back at that recently because of the stuff I've been listening to. But I knew I was going to talk to you, and I'm like, when did it change? Like when did it go from people pleaser to really worrying about what I was doing instead of what everybody else was doing, And I think because of the routine and the consistency and the continuing to build confidence and continuing to deliver, right? Like delivering at work, good work. Still working out, having a little success, doing these things, I think helped me change from people pleasing to, I don't want to say self-pleasing because that sounds stupid, but focused on,
you got to take care of yourself first.
Focused on my goals, right? And not what everybody else is worried about. So there was definitely a switch that flipped, that I went from that to who I am now. Obviously I'm different now than I was 20 years ago, but there's definitely a switch that flipped, and I'm like, okay, now I'm just going to drive and be myself, and I feel good. I'm getting confident and all these things, and working out definitely was a huge part of that. Like, everybody goes back to the comic book where the guy's getting the sand kicked in his face.
It's funny you say that, Steve, because that was the catalyst. That was the catalyst for me to start working out. I was 135, 6'1", and I never forget. I saw that comment. I told my dad. He bought that Weider weight set with the plastic weights on it.
Yeah, the cement inside.
Yep. It's the cement inside.
Yeah.
And you got the little chart, 3x6 sets. Yep. And that's where it all started. But I remember when I first came on GH, it was about that time. And what I was really attracted to was yours and Maurice's work ethic. And, when I think about it, Steve, as I was listening to you talk, we all were in shape, you, me, 20 something years ago.
Sure.
Now, for you to still be in that kind of shape 20 something years later says a lot about yourself, because, if we look around, look at our friends and stuff like that at 50, 57, they ain't looking like that. It's real easy. My son says it all the time. There's certain of our peers, actors, my son just calls it out. And he says like, dude, if I was on it, dude, how can they look like that? They're supposed to be military guys.
Yeah.
3 years later, they're like that, and, I found myself in a place, just keeping it real. That's what we do on the show. Um, I got caught with my pants down. You and me talked about this. I wasn't in the best shape I had. Now I could blame it on my cancer. I could blame it on my addiction. I could
Sure.
blame it on all of that stuff. That's
Sure.
another thing my dad taught me. I don't make excuses. I don't take them, not even legitimate ones. And I remember lying on that bed, and there was like, I remember coming to work that day, and they were like, yeah, you're going to be on the bed with your shirt off. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was thinking I had 5 or 6 months. And then I was like, remember, Steve, I said to you, that'll never happen again. It's not going to happen.
I know. And I saw the change.
Yeah. And I said, that's it. And you inspired me a lot. So thank you about that. But Steve, I wanted to flip gears for a second in terms of, because I'm not sure, but I think out of all of my close circle of friends, am I wrong in saying that you didn't have any substance abuse? You don't struggle with depression or anything like that personally? I know you, which we'll talk about, I know you inadvertently through, was it your stepfather or your real father?
Oh, both.
Wow. But you personally have never gone down that road?
I've been, listen, I'll say this. If I didn't meet my wife, I don't know where I would be right now.
Really?
Because I was on the edge a lot. I grew up, alcoholism in my family, my stepfather, I was around it all the time. And, as I guess a teenager then, it was celebrated. Yeah, let's party, let's drink, go get chicks. This is what we do, which is the worst advice ever to give a teenager.
Right? Don't ever say that. Yeah.
Don't ever tell your kid that. Right. So yeah, man, I was in definitely the party scene for a long time, from 18 until about 28. Wow. So it was interesting because someone said to me, because I felt like I could be an alcoholic, and she and this lady, a dear friend of mine, said, "Can you stop drinking?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Then you're not an alcoholic. If you could do it, you're not." Right. So whatever. I definitely walked the line, the fine line, the high wire of putting myself again in some not great situations,
right?
Doing stupid stuff, and just not really doing great things to your body, which, could have a toll later on in life. I don't know, but it wasn't great, dude. It was. And even Maurice at some point said to me, he's like, "Dude, you got to stop. You got to chill out, bro. You got to chill out." Because
I didn't really know that side of you. I knew about is your dad passed now?
Yeah, he's passed away. Yeah.
And it wasn't a good ending, right? What happened?
No, it wasn't a good. No, he struggled with addiction. And then he was 7 years sober, and then kind of fell off the wagon, and it was not a good ending. At all. Yeah, it sucks, man. I miss my dad every day, and it's like now I can see all the lessons he was teaching me, now when I'm 50 years old, and I couldn't really see him then because he was instrumental in my career. Like, he would take me to all my auditions. He would say, "Hey, kid, shake it off. No problem. You didn't get it. Who cares? Let's go to the next one." He was a big believer in positive thinking. And again, kind of getting what he got from his dad, writing your goals down, being relentless. My dad was a relentless person, and if you're pursuing a career or goals in life, you have to be relentless, right? There's no way that you can ever stop. You can never give up. For people listening, if you have a goal in life, you'll be ahead of 99% of the people out there if you never stop. Because most people will quit. Most people will quit.
I say relentless because when you have a calling on your life, Steve, and some people have more of a calling than others. We all have a gift. We all have a calling, but
sure,
you're definitely one of those people who, and it's like, I remember a friend of mine said, "Réal, you have a gift. You can do good with it. You can do bad with it. That's your choice." Yes. And, I love that, because you're very successful, and a lot of people do that. You could just go, "Steve's me." But like, even in your Patreon club, you have Motivational Monday. You like, let me give back. Let me start. There's a lot of things that you do. And I say, when you have that kind of calling, because who is really relentless? The enemy is relentless. And if you don't show up more relentless, they will take you out of your
100%.
game. 100%.
Yeah. But hold on, Réal.
Go
I
ahead.
like what you said there. I like what you said there, because that's something that we have in common is serving others is very important. Right. And once you make that flip to, oh, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to have a restaurant, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go on the road and make money and be on the show and all these things. But what are you doing to help others? Right. Because there's really no better feeling than helping others.
Amen.
Like when people say, hey, Steve, your Motivation Monday this week, it hit me and I changed something. That's the best. That's the best. I mean, that's real, right? That's like, we get to see like all our fans and all the people watch the show for years, which is amazing. But once you get to do something on a personal level for them and go, man, what you said really hit home. I need to change something in my life. Right. Because comfort is the enemy of progress. That's what I feel like. If you're super comfortable,
I like that.
you're never gonna grow as a person. Right. And what you were saying, what your son was saying about others maybe not staying in shape or taking care of their kid. Right. It's pleasure. We're always seeking pleasure as opposed to purpose. Like, what's my purpose for the day? I got to get up and do these things. As a man, I want my wife to know and my kids to know that I'll always be there no matter what. They can count on me and they go, that dude's going to be there for me tomorrow. Like, that's what I want. Because I didn't have that as a kid. I want my kids and my wife to know that I'm always going to be there and they can count on me no matter what. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. I don't care what happens. Right. And I know you have the same mentality. You'll go through you'll walk on glass for your family. Like, this is who I want to be, and I want to be that for everybody. I want to be that for people at work. This guy shows up on time. He knows his lines. He's going to work hard. He's going to help others. He's going to treat everybody equally. Let's go. Like, this is what it's about for me. I mean, being 50, Réal, I know I can't believe you're 57, but being 50, you really start to think about death.
Yeah. And I want to give you a props because, and we talked about this, like both of us, if we keep it real, right? If we go back 20, I can't believe it's been that long. I saw you just celebrated, how many years was it?
29.
29. So, yeah. And I got
in daytime.
Yeah. And they told me, I didn't know, 25-year anniversary coming up, but we were both like narcissists. We had an ego. It was all about us, and then to see that transformation, because it's like, I did an interview, I think with Soap Opera Digest the other day, and they asked me this, and it encapsulates both of us, I believe. They said, so, because, Taggart didn't get a lot of stuff back then. And they said, did it bother you that you didn't get, good storyline and lines? And I said, keeping it real, yeah, it really irritated me because I had an ego and it was all about me. But now I'm in a different place. I'm in a place of gratitude. Right. And so that's why we want to give back. Let me ask you this, Steve.
Well, hold on. Let's say, let me, I agree with you. There's definitely ego and pride involved back then.
Yeah.
Narcissism, I don't know.
Oh, I'll take the narcissism.
No, just because you still cared about other people.
Okay.
I don't think a narcissist cares about what other people feel. And you still cared about what other people felt. Right. So there's always ego and pride involved.
Yeah.
Right. Especially as an actor, especially like, where we were on the show and all this stuff going on. And there's no doubt that ego and pride was there for sure.
It's the industry, and I see some of these young, I see some of these young kids, and we all got to go through our own journey. It was like, I just see them and I'm like, and they're like, I gotta, I'm out of here. I'm going to go on to bigger, better things. I'm just like, dude. Yeah, dude,
I know,
you
but
should be grateful for what you have, but they got to go through their own journey, dude.
Right. We went through it. They have to go through it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Steve.
Yeah.
What would you say to your dad right now if you had an opportunity to spend even 5 minutes with him that you didn't get to say or tell him before?
Well, I was always able to tell him, no matter what was going on in our lives, I was always able to tell him how grateful I was that he sacrificed a lot for me. And what I miss now is just our relationship. Like, I miss him being able to be around the kids, and my kids never really getting to know him that well. That's what hurts me. Like, that hurts, dude, you know? And like I said, I think about him every single day, because a lot of the stuff that I'm implementing in my life now, he was trying to teach me when I was a dumb 20-year-old. You know what I mean? So, you know, I miss him so much. I love him so much, and I couldn't thank him enough. And I just wish that, you know, things have turned out differently, but, you know, obviously that was his journey, and he did as much as he could for me, which is, you know, I mean, I'll be forever grateful, man. It's just, it's, I don't know. It's just not a day that I don't go without thinking about him every day, you know?
That's awesome, dude. Well, listen, dude, I could talk to you forever, but I want to respect your time. A couple fun questions I always ask.
Hold on. Let me do something real quick. Sorry.
No.
Because I was thinking about this, and this is something I did for Motivation Monday.
Okay.
People, and this is something I learned from Les Brown. How do people start getting better and improving and having success, right? Success is different for everybody, right? Totally is. Somebody could be making 30 grand a year and they're happy as can be and they're content, right? I think I think the goal is to get to be content, because you can't be happy 24 hours a day. You can be content and grateful, right? And then you're going to have spouts of happiness, whatever that brings, relationships, whatever it is. So success isn't always about money, right? So what Les Brown taught me was that if you look at three things in your life, look at your mental, where you are mentally. If you were to rate yourself on a 1 to 10, where are you mentally? How do you feel mentally? How do you feel about yourself mentally? Right? And people go, "Oh, I feel like a 6." Okay. Well, there's things to do to get you to a 10. So what are those things that you can implement? Prayer, meditation, self-help, watch motivational videos, read books, work on yourself mentally, right? And then you have physically. Where are you physically on 1 to 10? You're a 5, you're a 6. You know what to do. Go walk for 30 minutes a day. Start there. Drink enough water, get enough sleep, make some better food choices. Because if you feel better physically, you know you're going to feel better mentally. And this is where it all comes together. You got mind, body, and spirit. And I think you have a mind, body, and spirit tattoo or something, right?
Yeah, I got that. And that's, that's what it's funny what I'm into now, mental health. We actually have a continuum. So I love what you're saying where we test, but yes.
Yeah. But so for me, I that kind of woke me up. I'm like, okay, what can I do mentally to make myself better? What can I do physically to make myself better? And then you look at your environment, because your environment is indicative of who you're going to be. If you're hanging around with negative people, you're going to be negative, right? And Les Brown says, if you hang around with losers, you're going to be a loser. And he throws it out there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if you look at those three things and just make minor adjustments, you're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to do better and maybe achieve a goal that maybe you didn't want to do, or achieve a goal that you've had that you haven't done yet. So all these little things help, right? There's not just one answer, but there's a lot of ways to get to your goal, So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, because a lot of people ask about, where can I start? And this is where you have to start, because that will build a routine for you, and the routine will lead to success. Because you know as well as I do, there are days you don't want to get up.
Yeah.
There are days that you don't want to work out, especially if you're struggling with any type of mental illness. There's days where you're like, there's days where I'm just like, please, God, please, I don't want to get up today. I don't want to get up. And then you're like, okay, then I got the positive self-talk guy in my head, and I have the negative one. Yeah. Because the negative one, for most people, I think 80% of self-talk is negative for the average person.
Yeah.
Right? So I got the other guy going, get up. Let's go. You got something to do today. You got something to prove today. Let's go. Get up. So then I get up and I just go through my routine. And then by the time I'm halfway out of my routine, I'm like, okay, good. I feel good. Right. Yeah. So anyway.
No, it's good stuff, Stephen. Before I get the question, I just want to
Yeah.
first is that's where I came up with the 5 4 3 2 1 boom, because 5 4 3 2 1 boom, get up. 5 4 3 2 1 boom, go to the gym. 5 4 3 2 1, because I needed that to help me. And the other thing, check this out, Steve. Think about this, because for 42 years of my life, I've owned 4 of my gyms, been a fitness expert. It's always been physical. Let me help you get into that 6-pack. Let me help you get in your little black dress. But lately, and that's what I'm very passionate about, I found that it's the gut-brain axis, which means the gut is the second brain, your heart is the third brain. And it's like, now it's about mental health is your physical health. And if you think about growing up as a kid, and I asked people this, I said, how many of you were educated on your physical health, nutrition 101, et cetera, et cetera? Everybody raises their hand. And then I say, how many of you were educated on your mental health? It's crickets. But just like you said, the mental health is more important. And so I love you. Thank you for sharing that. So favorite superhero?
Superman.
Superman. You look like
well, I have to say, I have to say Superman or Iron Man.
Oh my God.
Because Iron Man was an entrepreneur that kicked ass.
Yeah. I think you're more of an Iron Man, but you do look
I like Iron
Superman.
Man. So I'll take Iron Man too.
If you had a superpower,
oh gosh,
what would it be and how would you use it to change the world?
What I truly don't understand is why is in where we live in America, why there's people without basic necessities. This is something that I don't understand, why this is humanly possible. With the wealth of this nation, why are there people without? So that's one thing I would change. If I had the power to change that, that's the one thing I would change. Having to worry about food. Look, I grew up with not a lot. Having to worry about food sucks. Mm-hmm. Having to worry about your basic needs is the worst.
I mean, I ate a lot of Kraft macaroni and cheese and Spam growing up.
Oh, dude.
I actually I love it now. I'm so used to it. So, okay. I think I know the answer to this one. Favorite.
But anyway, I just don't understand why people are without, honestly. Yeah. It just drives me crazy.
I agree. Biggest mentor. I think I know the answer to that.
Ooh, man, I've had a lot of mentors though. Like, my dad was a huge mentor of mine. A pastor friend of mine he passed away from cancer. He was a huge mentor of mine. His name was Chuck Obremski. And I listen to a lot of motivational guys, mm-hmm. but I always go back to Les Brown. Mm-hmm. I always go back to Les Brown. There's people that you're going to see that you identify with, right? Like I need someone to go, hey, stupid, mm-hmm. what are you doing? Quit being an idiot. Let's go.
Call you for real.
Yeah. Call me out. Like, what are you doing? That's stupid. Get up. We're going, sometimes that's what I need, and I listen to a few guys like that, but Les Brown's kind of like been the consistent guy in my life that I always end up going back to every time, dude, like every time, and it's just,
I think that's key though, Steve. And I'm going to hit on that for people listening, because I think it's great. The books we read and stuff will be, and people you hang around with who you'll become in the next 5 years. But I think it's key because I think some people can too much. They've got like 10, 12 different motivational or inspirational speakers they're listening to. I think you should definitely listen to as many as you can, but focus on 1 to 3 because, and go with that. Fine. So I love that you found, that with Les. Favorite book?
Hold on. Let's go a step further. First of all, Maurice Bernard obviously was a huge mentor of mine. Changed my life in a lot of reasons, or a lot of ways.
Yep.
A lot of ways. So I always give him credit. So, but the other thing too, Réal, is let's listen to this stuff and let's take any action. Right. That's the thing. It's like if you're going to sit there and listen all day, it doesn't matter. Like, take action. It doesn't matter if you fail. So many people are afraid to take that first step. And listen, there's nobody who's successful who's never failed. Everybody's failed multiple times. The most successful guys are the guys who failed the most. So success always leaves clues. We know this. Mm-hmm. Like, look at what they're doing. They're going to fail. People fail. People don't believe things can happen. Like Elon Musk says, I'm going to go to space, and people are like, you're stupid. So he bought a freaking used rocket from Russia. And I was like, now I'm in space. I mean, that's crazy talk, right? It's like, if he could go buy a used rocket and put it in space, I think I could go to the gym 3 times a week.
I know. Oh, that's so good, man.
So anyway.
No, it's good. Okay, what was I forgot? I was having too much fun.
It's all right, dude. Yeah.
No. Favorite book. Did I ask you? No, favorite book. I know you got a lot. Or audio book.
You know, I don't. Is there a favorite book? I'm not a huge reader.
I don't read, but I listen.
I do a lot of I do a lot of books, a lot of audio books.
Yeah.
You know, I like things that there's not one particular book. You know, obviously I love reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I love positive things. I'll read positive quotes. I'll just sit there and read positive quotes.
Right.
You know, so there's not really a favorite book that I have. If I was going, hey, that's my favorite book. I don't really have a favorite book because I've read so many books about finances and all these things. So I'm more of a listener to podcasts and stuff. So
now, what about a kid? As a kid, I always like to. Now, not everybody does, but as a kid, Curious George, Richie Rich.
Sure, all those guys. Yeah.
What was your favorite book as a kid?
Oh man. Dude, I was a huge cartoon kid. So any cartoons in the 80s, I was always watching cartoons. Always. I mean, Richie Rich was funny because that dude had so much money. It was amazing. And you're like, wow, that'd be cool.
What about Archie's? Remember that?
Yeah, well, that's where I said with the Archies. That's where
you should have been in the Archies.
That's where I saw that the ad for the first time was the Archies in the back of the guy kicking sand in the guy's face. I'm like, oh, that was an Archie comic book. So, I don't know. There's really no. I mean, yeah, it's dude. The childhood was. I have good memories of my childhood, even though the circumstances might not have been the best. But yeah, I don't. Is there a favorite book? I don't know. My son had a choice of reading The Outsiders or The Hobbit for school, and I'm like, dude, you should have read The Outsiders. There's a great book.
Yeah.
He goes, it was. I go,
Hobbit.
That was the best. Outsiders was the best. You know, so.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Steve. You said it. I'll bring it back, and then I have one last question for you, and then I want you to tell people where they can find you. You got a lot of great stuff going on. You've said it a couple of times, and when we were in it, we didn't realize it. Like we both came from, you know, in my mind, and still, I had a great childhood. But when I sit down at 57 and I look back, that it wasn't the greatest childhood, but for me in the moment, it was phenomenal, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's interesting you say it. So you kind of alluded to this and you don't even know. So I love this. I'm actually going to use it for a bit on the thing. So I like to end every podcast with, I initially wanted to be, you know, Tony Robbins, E.T., Les Brown, love Les Brown, nothing against him. I want to be a next big motivational speaker. And then along the way, like you just said, I noticed like anybody can, dude, I spent 5 days with Tony Robbins, tens of thousands of people jumping up and down like craziness, and then nobody does nothing with it. Right. So I decided that I want to be an action coach. This is what this is all about.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
People listening to this.
Yes.
What action task would you give them that if they get off this podcast right now and put that action into action, don't even hesitate, that their life will start to change and go in a better direction?
Wow. There's a few things. The number one thing I would say is figure out what your passion is. What do you love doing? What makes you, when you're doing it, what makes you happy and fulfilled, right? Because a lot of people just stifle that down because they're married, they have kids, they have a job, or all these things. Life gets in the way of what really your passion is, right? So now that passion doesn't necessarily have to make you money, but I always encourage people to go, what is it that you want to do that you haven't done, and why aren't you doing it? Right? Like that's, for me, taking action is write down something that you want to do that you haven't done and go do it. You know, whether it's skydiving or, you know, spending time with your, having a girls' weekend somewhere, or something that you haven't done because you've sacrificed yourself for your family, for your job, for whatever, but you got to take care of yourself. Right. So the action for me is figure out what gets you fired up when you're like, yes, this is like, and you're in that state of that flow state of like, you feel so good. You're on a high, you're on a natural high because you're doing something that you love to do. That's number one, because I love for people to have that feeling. And then number two is what can you do to make your life better now? Like physically and mentally, what is it you can do right now? So if you just spend 20 minutes a day bettering yourself mentally and physically, you're going to feel better every single day. Like even if just going for a 20-minute walk, listening to something positive in your mind. Les Brown says, when you first wake up, that's when you're most like a sponge. So if you're on your phone immediately and it's negative, guess how you're starting your day out, right? But if you don't pick up your phone and you get up, and I throw cold water. If I can't take a cold shower, I throw cold water on my face. I get ready to go. I go work out. I listen to something motivational. And by the time I'm done, dude, I feel great. Yeah. Like just those little steps. But I would always encourage someone just to write their goals down. If you've never done it, just write 3 goals down this year for your New Year's resolution. Write 3 goals down.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Been phenomenal. Tell people.
Awesome, brother. Anytime. This is amazing. I love this stuff.
Yes. Tell people where they can find your website, your handles on social media, your podcast. Tell us all about it.
Podcast at One Steve Burton on Twitter and Instagram. StoneColdandTheJackal.com is where the podcast is, and everything that Bradford and I are doing, all the dumb fun stuff and the motivational stuff, all that's StoneColdandTheJackal.com. But we're out there, man. We're just trying. We're trying to make people feel good.
You're not trying, you're getting it done. So
that's true.
Anyways, guys, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, champions, for showing up. We appreciate you.
Awesome.
Put it into action. There were so many great nuggets in here, guys. Just my encouragement for you is just take some of them, put them into action. We love you. We appreciate you. I'll believe in you. You believe in yourself. Make the rest of the day the best of the day. God bless. Boom.
Thank you for listening. We hope our podcast helps you in your journey to walk in your power and create generational wealth. If you liked the show, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and leave a rating. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Réal Andrews. Looking for more tips, tools, and nuggets to help you on your journey? Stop by our website, www.realandrews.com. Until next time, remember, take action. You matter. You are important, and you can do whatever you want to do.